Republicans who no longer believe in having a federal republic, stop calling us the left. The left doesn't exist, not the way you're using it. Because what you now call the left is just everybody else who isn't you. It's everybody who isn't watching Hate the World television to get their news. It's everybody else who doesn't want to cancel elections or do away with the idea of a people-run government. Everybody who isn't terrified of doctors or teachers or people who are experts in their field. There is no left versus right, where both sides are equally insane, and there's centrists in the middle. There's one side, a giant group of mostly white people, who appear to want to secede from the Union or destroy it. Then there's some old folks in deep denial who want to find a middle ground with that, like the West Virginia Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, who makes over $500,000 a year from his coal company. Now, you know there was a former Exxon lobbyist, and he was caught on tape talking about senators that are critical to Exxon's interests, and he called Joe Manchin the kingmaker. Senator Manchin, the only thing that he's moderate about is the stranglehold fossil fuel has over our climate, a moderate stranglehold. That's a centrist, occupying the middle ground between giant corporations controlling our economy and the rest of us. Regardless of their diversity statements, those big companies' political contributions make very clear how scientific they are about making easy prey of majorities of white people to fight any form of regulation or taxes on them, getting you to unwittingly vote against your own interests again and again because of, ironically, identity politics. All they have to do is get someone to say your implanted trigger words. Socialism. Communism. Anyway, then there's the rest of us. People who got vaccinated in kindergarten and thought that was normal, like wearing underwear and using soap, cooperating with flight attendants when flying through the air in air taxis. You know, modern life. Are you familiar with all this incredible technology? It's like you were just unfrozen, because it's hard to find an explanation for how it's mainly your one monochromatic group that thinks immunization records and little paper masks during a global health crisis is fascism. So the rest of us are going, oh my God, the rules for kindergarten are oppression? Because they're not, and even 5-year-olds know that. But we are wondering, where is your adult supervision? This ongoing temper tantrum, it's not a mystery. You're worried you're never going to be in charge again or the center of attention. But it's okay. When we say save the whales, that does not mean kill the dolphins. And talk about cancel culture. God forbid the rest of us talk about slavery, which begat segregation, which begat the war on drugs, which begat a total meltdown when we suggest funding other social workers besides police officers. You know that would really lighten the load for cops too, right? But we kind of saw what you think of blue uniforms on January 6th. Are you really under the impression that Black Lives Matter is a movement started by Democrats? Which Democrat? Crime Bill Joe Biden or politically savvy prosecutor Kamala Harris? See, this is why some of us think you were really frozen for a few centuries and just got thawed. Black Lives Matter isn't a single organization. It's America's ongoing struggle for basic human rights. Think about it. 400 years of racial terrorism has all kinds of terrible consequences. And yet, 93% of the recent protests were peaceful, the largest in human history, and all of us went to them, other than you. And you were invited. Everybody outside your bubble is united against monoculture. We're not united against Christianity, or Christmas, or cowboy hats, or working for a living, or speaking freely without fear of government censorship. We're not united against your gender or your pronoun. We're all for people living as they feel to live, as long as it doesn't take away somebody else's freedom or well-being. So, taking away women's health care, which, by the way, you should know drives abortion rates up, or allowing a gun-crazy vanilla ISIS to take charge of the land of the free and dismantle all our institutions? Are you surprised the rest of us don't want that, what looks to us like the white Taliban? We're literally never going to let that happen. Having a big melting pot nation with freedom of religion, with a separation of church and state, a central government with elected representatives who are not above the law, providing basic services to invest in all our people in exchange for our tax dollars, that's not a Democrat idea. That didn't originate from CNN. Big tech didn't target us all with a meme made by George Soros. Marxists didn't whisper it to us in our dreams, and nobody paid me to say this. Why would they need to? This is just how most people think, who aren't you. The majority of Native people, the majority of Latino, Latina, Latinx people, the majority of Black people, the majority of Asian people, the majority of LGBTQ plus people who aren't a monolith any more than anybody else, along with intersections of all the above. Your favorite, oat milk latte drinking liberals, hippies, jazz musicians, most Sikhs, most Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Baptists, most Catholics, most college-educated folks like doctors and teachers and CEOs, and most young people. Now, who do you have? Mortgage bankers, Catholic priests, plastic surgeons, Mormons. Guys, we're not all Democrats, nor liberals. Not all of us like Joe Biden's track record, but we voted for him because we took one look at you and we said, not today, Satan. We love this country. We don't want to see it turn into an idiocracy and water our plants with Gatorade. We want to heal it. Healing the legacy of our family line, I think that's the major opportunity of this life. And anybody who isn't a Native American is pretty much an illegal immigrant if you take a look at all the broken treaties and stolen land. There's so many amazing ways that we can learn from the past to understand the present, come together, and build each other up. We want to see this place thrive. So yeah, I know this is hard to hear these days, but we do want a government. And maybe you missed this part because you were stuck in that block of ice, but having one is necessary to the existence of a civilized society. Having a government is the system we who live in societies use to fulfill our collective needs, to maximize our greatest resource, human beings. Having public services like Japan or Denmark or Sweden or 20 other countries you can look at shouldn't be scary unless adulting is scary. Taking proper care of ourselves, that's not being entitled. It's being emotionally stable, a wise investor, a real patriot, meaning we love the whole country, all of us. And we want our government to be efficient and advanced, state-of-the-art, and working directly for us. So that means we have to do our job. We got to get big corporate money out of politics. So people like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, the entire Republican Party aren't working for lobbyists against our interests. We got to end gerrymandering. We need term limits. We want corporations and billionaires to pay taxes because we don't want to see our national wealth get hoarded by 600 people or forged into the shape of man's basic psychological insecurity and launched into outer space, forcing us all to witness a man deep in the throes of America's virility crisis, trying and failing to compensate for the impotence of gross materialism. I mean, that guy, he's got more wealth than half the countries on the planet, and that's what he does with it? Does he know our government already went to space in 1961? NASA. That's what a well-funded government program looks like. And it's 2021 right now. The country should look like Star Trek or Wakanda, but we're stuck. Partly because old Democrat establishment figures get to keep using you as blackmail to keep themselves in power. Because we can't take any chances. If we close our eyes for a second, odds are you're going to get dressed up in white power cosplay outfits again to storm another building. Guys, the desperation is painful. You've lumped us all into a box called the left. Did you mean the left of the Atlantic? Just call us the USA. It's a great place. You should visit. It's on the other side of the flat earth. There's people here from all over the world, the round one. And we aren't scared of each other because we've spent some time together. And it turns out, regardless of all our differences, we get along pretty well. So we are set on loving each other unconditionally. And you know whose advice that reminds me of? No, not Anderson Cooper. No, not Rachel Maddow or Oprah. Jesus. And you should know where the term the right comes from, too, while we're at it. It comes from the French Revolution. when their National Assembly met to draft their constitution, and aristocrats representing the royal monarchy and absolute obedience to its rule sat on the right. The right wanted their unqualified king to have total authority. Well, it didn't work out so well for him nor his wife Marie Antoinette. Suffice it to say, he was the last king of France. That way of doing things lost favor with everybody who isn't you a long time ago. But look, some folks still don't want a multicultural society. They don't want to have a democratically elected government. They don't want public health care or public schools. They refuse to go along with any social contract that the majority of people have voted into. They want to be free of all that. No rules, every man for himself. They like chaos. Or they want to live a simple life as the subjects of a child king with gold-plated furniture. Look, you guys, I'm sure there's a wilderness somewhere out there for you to test out Darwinism in action again. But here in the United States, we're not going to go backwards. We're about progress. So the next time somebody complains about the left, remind them that really, they're just talking about all the rest of us.